What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another segment of HR Heretics. Today is November 5th, and it is Election Day in the United States. So, Kelly, I want to take 15, 20 minutes and talk about how best we can prepare for this wild election. I'll just actually lead off with something that I think is really important that I don't think many people are processing, which is this feels like one of those elections that half of the country is going to lose. And I don't think they're really prepared for losing. It really feels like if your side loses, you are going to feel just devastated and crushed. And, I'm just going to say, I'm going to lead this thing off by saying, I think the number one thing that you can prepare for yourself for this week as we go into whoever wins is just prepare for your side to lose, prepare for the country to continue to move forward. And just think about how you're going to process that and interact with your neighbors, with your colleagues, with your family. Because ultimately, these are elections. We have them every 4 years, but this one feels a little bit different to me.
It does. I mean, I wouldn't say that I'm extremely obsessed with politics and whatnot for a variety of reasons, but I have been listening and following this one more closely than others in the past. And I do feel like it seems heavier. And it doesn't, no matter who you want to win or whatnot, the winner almost scares me less than how the country moves forward.
Exactly.
To your point. Because the issues are heavy, the intensity is heavy. I think the opposition, right? If you're on one side or the other, the almost anger and towards the other side. And I understand why. I'm not discounting that. I'm just saying it's so potent that I worry about how we move forward. So my mind is already, beyond the winner, because no matter if Trump or Kamala wins, we got to figure this out. And this feels extremely divided.
Yeah, totally. The rhetoric is so amped up. There's so much ad hominem, personal attacks.
Yeah.
And this is on both sides, right? This is not one side is absolved from this. This is happening all over the goddamn place now. And I think the craziest part is, we've gone from politics kind of being we used to use the term presidential a lot, right? And in the era of social media and in the era of memes, it turns out presidential doesn't really sell anymore. The stuff that sells is the, taking ad hominem attacks, really going after your opponent in dirty ways. Because then you can create this this little meme that you can put on Twitter or a TikTok. And then that gets people all riled up and excited. And, ultimately, I can complain about the state of our politics all day long. And I would complain about that to you because I think it's awful. But this is just the world that we're now living in. And so I think the thing people need to really think about is, how am I going to process this? And expecting the worst situation for you personally. So the thing I've been thinking about over the course of the last couple of months is well, if the person who I'm voting for loses, what am I going to do? And honestly, I think the thing I'm going to do is just try and get behind our new president. Because what the hell else am I going to do? Just fight this? Expect things to be mad about not getting my way? I just think in moments like this, when we are so divisive, the thing that we can do is just completely buck that trend and just whoever wins, let's just go support that person. We're all Americans at the end of the day, and let's hope that they're successful, because that's how our country is going to be successful.
Yeah. And that's what scares me. That's what scares me is that, what scares me, Nolan, that the damage has already been done as far as the divisiveness.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to be honest. I feel like this election, these debates, these campaigns, it doesn't matter when it was Biden or Kamala. I feel like we've let the toothpaste out of the tube and giving people permission to just be hateful and be angry. And I don't know if you want to call it true colors or whatnot, but I just feel like it's gotten out of hand. And I feel like this process has enabled and allowed that. And I fear that will continue after the election's over, no matter who wins. And one example that hit me the other day, obviously listen to podcasts, kind of have to. But I was listening to a podcast and they were saying, if you look at, Kamala's going on all these podcasts, Trump's going on all these podcasts, and they're like hanging out with their own gender and like their own people. And like Kamala's going on all these female podcasts and Trump's going on all these male podcasts, and the young male voter, I'm generalizing, but like more young male voters now are getting behind Trump because of all, like, we are undoing the shit that, like, I think we tried to be better in the past, X number of years. That's not a good process. If you want to do it, like, she should go on the male podcast. He should go on the female podcast and talk about things that are opposite of what they're talking about. And what we try to do on this podcast, understand the other view and have a professional conversation. Because, like, when I think about, like, if I was going to be president, I don't think about all the people that fucking support me and that are like me. I think about how I'm going to lead and support and rally the people that don't believe in me or like me. So, like, again, this homogeneous situation we have, I just feel like it makes me sad because I think a lot of progress has been undone just through this process.
I agree. I totally agree with you. It honestly feels like the tents are getting smaller. Like it used to be like, we want to expand the tent and let more people into the tent. And now it feels like, the tents are getting a lot smaller and they're essentially like polar opposites in many ways. I would, except for the rhetoric. I think the rhetoric is really bad on both sides. It's honestly like, especially over the course of this like last week, like leading up to election day, good God, the rhetoric has gotten so bad and so divisive. It's like a race to the bottom.
Well, honestly, Noel, it's embarrassing. Like, and I'll just go back to, this isn't about any one person. This isn't about Kamala, Trump, Biden, but I'll go back to that Biden-Trump debate. Like, I was disgusted at, to your point, the level at which they took these conversations and these attacks. Like, those of you in the audience, like, we are all business leaders, right? We are held to standards of professionalism. You work in your organizations, it's civility. It's, again, just a common courtesy and respect, even for those you disagree with. They're talking about who's better at golf. They're talking about who's better looking, I heard on one freaking thing. How someone laughs is being talked about across the country for one of our, like, it's just unacceptable. And I'm just telling you, if we went in there and started doing this in our organizations, we'd be fired.
Hey everyone, we'll be right back in a moment after a word from our sponsors.
Real talk, most talent leaders haven't yet cracked how to leverage AI for meaningful impact on their hiring processes and business goals. But the leaders who are effectively using AI to transform their recruiting team's efficiency and quality use Metaview. Metaview is the AI assistant for the interview process. Their AI records and transcribes hiring conversations, like intakes, interviews, and debriefs, then provides perfectly summarized notes of everything that was discussed. That means your people can focus on creating human connections with candidates during calls and save time on the busy work of cleaning up notes after every interview. But it's so much more than just a time saver, because perfect notes means perfect data. For every candidate in every pipeline, hiring teams can make confident, informed decisions, and talent leaders can finally take control of the interview process. Join forward-thinking talent leaders at high-performing organizations like Brex, HelloFresh, and Quora, and check out Metaview. Head over to metaview.ai/heretics to talk to one of Metaview's product experts, or get started for free. You'll be up running and AI-enabled in minutes.
Yeah, I mean, they're talking about a lot of things. I mean, they're comparing rallies to Nazi Germany. Like, it is so wild how bad it's gotten.
And we're that's okay. It really boggles my mind.
Here's the thing I would say, Kelly, is like, all right, so the majority of our listeners, you're working class professionals. Like, typically you work in tech. Typically, like, you're trying to get ahead. You want to figure out like how to operate with other people. And so here's what I would say. Here's the way I'm thinking about this from my own world, which is like, one, like, be aware of how social media and traditional media is going to warp you for the next few days. Like, do you really want to be spending all of your time watching CNN? Is that how you want to like comprehend what's going on here? And I know it like fires up like, you know, all of the receptors in our brain is like gambling, right? It's like me and you are big gamblers, Kelly. Like I get to the table like all fucking day.
That was a
And
secret.
Sorry, I outed you. But it turns out that election results do the same thing. I have done this in past elections to where I've like literally just been sitting at watching CNN all day long. And then I'm like, oh my God, I'm like really unhappy with myself. So like maybe like have some time set out to where like you're not interacting with your phone. You're just like out in nature, going for walks. Maybe you go interact with real humans. I think that actually might help people a lot is go talk to your neighborhood, go talk to your community, go hang out with your kids. You know, ultimately, yes, presidential elections are a very, very big deal and elections have consequences. But regardless, just look out for your people, look out for yourself, go look out for your colleagues, be there for people. And if you notice people getting in these ruts, it's probably just because they're just consuming so much media and it's just not great for our mental health.
Yeah. I will say though, I disagree on the CNN front. Like I like it. Like I have boundaries and I can compartmentalize, but I'll put it on mute sometimes, but I like it. I think following kind of what's going on and the different angles. But I will say like the TikToks, all the fake, I mean, that's a whole different ball game, I think, of distraction and chaos and insanity. But I do enjoy the CNN route. I do.
Yeah.
I don't
What's
know.
that guy's name? John, the guy with the white hair who does the board. I actually like him. I like the board thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, I don't.
John King.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. But I spend a lot of time doing all those other things, family, this. I actually don't spend a lot of time like my ear. Like, so it's nice for me to have it up and look at that. But like, I will tell you, I don't have a TikTok account. I think that is just chaos. I did have one question for you.
Sure.
Because you have so many strong opinions and, you know, whatnot. But one thing that's confusing me in all this that I'm scared about is like, I feel like every day I wake up and there's new voting laws in this state and Georgia and that. Like, that seems to be very chaotic to me. And I worry about all of that, like a week before the election, all this stuff changing and confusion, just causing a big shit show.
This is where I think history is like a really good barometer for like, what are we experiencing right now? And like, how crazy is it now compared to like what we've had in the past? Specifically for like what you're talking about, which is like lawsuits and, you know, things coming up as it relates to like voting rules and stuff like that. Like that's been going on for forever. And in fact, like, I think there's like a big soundbite right now around election integrity, and our elections have gotten so much more secure as time has gone on. Like now I personally think they could be even more secure. But like none of this shit is new. And every 4 years we act like, oh my God, we're like entering this like, you know, uncharted territory. And it's just not true. Like, you know, the stuff that happened, you know, in the 1800s and early 1900s, like there was like legitimate election rigging then compared to like what we have now. I just think it's a little bit, it's just a little bit trite to say those things, especially when they lack evidence. But the thing I want to ask you is like, so now let's live in a world, Kelly, to where like you're a chief people officer in a company. You're not right now, but just say you were hypothetically. The results are announced and half of your company is pissed and the other half of your company is celebrating. How do you navigate like that next week or so as people are like really still living in and steeped in it?
Yeah, I mean, I love how we talk about nothing's really new, because I honestly wouldn't do anything different than I did 8 years ago. I really wouldn't. And for me, you asked, what do I do after the election? What fucking matters is now. It matters what you do, I think, leading up to the election, in setting expectations with the company, being clear about your stance and the boundaries the organization holds, what you expect from individuals after the election, no matter if their candidate wins or not. Repeating that over and over, because they don't listen. If you say it
people
once,
forget. Yeah.
Totally. I would do it literally a month before the election, and I would repeat it like 4 times a week in different forums. And obviously showing support, presenting options for people to do what they need to do, and making sure that leaders are accountable for, enabling that and supporting that. And it's so funny. Like I learned a lot working for a company, headquartered in North Carolina, because I grew up, I've done nothing, really the last 25 years, but Bay Area, right? Largely Democratic companies. And I realized like different companies have all different mixes of people and stances. And so no matter if you're right wing or left wing, as far as like the majority, you have to make sure that you're inclusive and you're showing support and acknowledgement for everybody. And especially if you're a CPO and you have strong opinions and strong beliefs in one way or another that might be opposite. So that's the part where you have to compartmentalize, which can also be hard.
Totally. Yeah. It's interesting. You mentioned the word inclusive there. And I think a lot of times, like when we're talking about inclusivity, it's like selective inclusivity, the stuff that like I want to include that I feel like is marginalized, and that this is actually, I think, one of the hardest parts about being any executive in today's world is like the amount of diversity we have inside of companies, especially intellectual diversity, is bigger than at any other point in time in history.
Yeah.
People believe completely different things. And so, given that we're on election day today, and now we're going to get into results, God knows how long that stuff is going to take. All I would say to folks is I totally agree with Kelly's advice is like, if you've been, setting expectations up until now, awesome. Like you're ahead of the game, keep doing it. If you haven't, then, all I would say is like, people are going to need a little bit of time to process this thing. And so giving people like the amount of space, like, this is, I would say like the week to where like less productivity is generally happening, but also like leaning into work is a distraction. Like work is a distraction from the wildness going on in the world. It's kind of like the normal thing. And so helping people realize that, like, hey, like, let's just get back to work. Like, this is going to help us continue to move forward. That's typically what I do is I get back to my routine on these things. But it is a really weird time in our country right now. And all I could say is like, I really hope that, you could still love your colleagues. You can love your neighbors, regardless of who they voted for. And I hope we can all get behind this next president because we need it. We need to win. And we got to get behind the winner regardless.
Yeah. Thanks all.
All right. Happy election day, all. See ya.
HR Heretics is a podcast from Turpentine, the network behind Econ 102, Moment of Zen, and Turpentine VC. Subscribe, 5 stars, share it on Apple, YouTube, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcasts, all the things.